Welcome to Commerce Media Matters, your go-to podcast for unpacking the world of commerce media. Here, we catch up with industry leaders on news, research, insights, perspectives, and everything in between.
Hi, I'm Paul Blackburn.
And I'm Nick Morgan, founder and CEO at Voodoo. With us today is Jason Wescott, Global Head of Commerce Solutions at GroupM Nexus and Chair of the IAB Europe Retail Media Committee. If you've been anywhere near the world of retail media and commerce, chances are you've heard his name. Jason's been in the game for nearly 2 decades with key roles at Hasbro, Publicis Commerce, and now GroupM. And as chair of the IAB Europe Retail Media Committee, he's been leading the charge on standardization, transparency, and innovation in this space. Today, we're going to dive into all of that and more as we unpack the commerce media game plan. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
God, thanks for dragging me up early this morning.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Europe versus Australia time zone. You gotta love it.
So, Jason, 20 years experience in media, commerce, e-commerce, retail media. You literally wrote the book on this, the 101 guide for the IAB Europe with all the team over there. How have you seen the landscape shift in the most recent years? It's become all the rage. What do you think the key drivers that are, fueling the growth in Europe at the moment, but also globally? And, what can Australia learn from all of that?
Gosh, yeah, it's definitely having a moment. Retail media, commerce media, whatever you want to call it, just so people don't get confused. I tend to use the two interchangeably, even though retail media is more focused on retailers who sell physical products and their retail media propositions, and then commerce, that extends to services and all sorts of other things, but attaching a media business, to that. So just wanted to sort of get that out there up front. The way that I see it, it used to be just a bit of a sideshow, a bit of a kind of specialist division, from a marketing team perspective. I mean, I first started doing this when I was at Hasbro, and I joined Hasbro to do e-commerce. And we were transitioning from a very brick and mortar led selling model to, we need to get better at doing Amazon basically. And everything from e-commerce sort of followed off the back of that.
Yeah.
And then that spawned this very, very interesting, subdivision of marketing. Is it digital shopper marketing? Because we have the shopper marketing, very, very well laid out already, cardboard in stores, gondola ends, freestanding display units, all of this kind of stuff. But those ads in a digital shopper environment is where, this really started to build. And I remember at first, we couldn't even be invoiced for running sponsored ads on Amazon. We had to pay via a credit card. It was only set up for marketplace sellers, not for big vendor accounts like us. So, things have come a very, very long way in like 10 years.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you said first up around using commerce media and retail media interchangeably. I mean, we've spent quite a bit of time on this podcast sort of exploring the language and contributed to that, that guide. I think the language is really important because it can get confusing for those out there. I mean, we always refer to commerce media as the broader landscape, like you said, the off-network opportunities, as well as the retailer-specific canvases in store and on their and operated assets. So it was great to see that clarity coming from you too, and we would 100% agree. In that space at the moment, who are the guys that are really moving and shaking over in the UK at the moment?
I think I wrote an article on my LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, and it's the article that's got the most attention of anything I've kind of ever put out. I think it was just good timing. It was the right topic. A few industry thought leaders picked up on it, and it started some really great debate in the comments.
You also put an article out about your child, which is actually I noticed got a lot of following too. Let's be sure about that one as well.
Yeah, I cut his hair on his first birthday. So
yeah, they got a lot of reaction.
The Filipino tradition is you don't cut their hair until the child's one year old. It's like for good luck. So yeah, a lot of people enjoyed that, which was nice. But coming back to that point, who's doing it well in the UK? I definitely think Tesco, dunnhumby with their Media Insights platform, doing an incredible job, and they can just offer everything. I mean, this is where brick and mortar retailers, who have an omni-channel offer and have in store and online, very well connected, can offer things that are over and above and connect all of these dots. So, sponsored ads on their shopping app, linked to promotions, offsite targeting using their first party data, to showcase brands' products, to get them thinking about it next time they go into the store. They subconsciously then add it to their shopping trolley. And then in-store, digital in-store, but also physical in-store as well. I mean, I saw an example recently through one of our agencies, Essence MediaCom. It was the client was Nestle, and they wrapped a Tesco, not a big store, a convenience store, with a Kit Kat wrap, which is the chocolate brand. And it looked absolutely amazing. And I think the data and insights would have gone into that in relation to the locations of the stores to kind of wrap and where they want to drive more sales and all of these things. So you get that amazing connection, that trifecta between creative media, smart media placement, and data fueling everything, which is amazing.
It's an exciting, very exciting space. You've just said to us then that it was always kind of on the outer, and that retail media, commerce media was something that was done in divisions. And would you say that it's part of a core? Is it part of the core media marketing mix modeling now, or does it need more work to become more of a core offering? Is it a primary channel, and something we're discussing now with all brands? First and foremost, you get it on the table, this is what we're leaning right into.
God, that's a great question. And there's there isn't really a straight answer.
No. I ask great questions, just hard to answer.
Hey, Jason, that's his first great question. So, he's pumped.
That's it. Nice one. I think the responsibility lands on all sides for this. At GroupM, we put out an annual forecast twice a year. We call it this year, next year. Industry leading paper. So, shout out to Kate, Scott Dawkins and Nidhi Shah and the rest of the team. We put that together. That's my kind of Bible for the year as soon as that comes out. They're showing that retail media forecast for this year to be $176.9 billion. And that's going to make it 15.9% of GroupM's forecast on overall media spend globally. So it's not a sideshow anymore. Our global head of commerce, Samantha Bukowski, talks about a lot of our clients now, the share of retail media within their digital marketing mix can go up to like 35 to 36%. So, that's over a third. It's a big slice of the pie.
It's a big piece.
And it can't afford to remain siloed from the rest of the marketing mix. There are some who they'll create a fiefdom, within the agency landscape. A lot of specialized sort of smaller agencies who specialize, they will be employed by an advertiser to run the retail media scope, separately to the rest of media. If those type of models continue, they're going to become unstuck, because it's not 5% share anymore. We're looking at 30+% share.
Yeah, that's also exciting, right? That's exciting from a brand perspective. If the agency's leading in and understanding that this is all part of the mix, it can be a really holistic, really well thought out, considered offering for your customers, your clients, right?
Absolutely, because it's so powerful in the way now that retail and commerce media can offer brand opportunities. It's not just that preconceived, lower funnel, just close to purchase and driving a sale type of media. It's not just a dessert anymore. It's like the full course meal, which is great. And that's why it needs to sit alongside everything else. And it's having a place in everything else as well. We're now connecting retailer first party data to upper funnel channels, connected TV. So, that makes it really interesting.
There's a couple little breadcrumbs you said there. So the guys that were doing it well, breadcrumbs, I was trying to stick with the food theme there. You said the guys that were doing it well seemed to be the ones that were most connected. You used those words. And then, we obviously talked about the mix. And I think, probably that's GroupM's role in this, right, is how do you get the right mix? So the guys that are doing it well are the ones that make it easier to do it holistically rather than just a singular channel, right? It's like you're saying, it's 15% of the overall media spend. Would you agree that the guys that are doing it really well and making it easier for you to plan it as part of the mix are going to be the most successful in this retail media space?
Absolutely. That's so important. Long gone are the days where you just got a commerce team, working on a retail media campaign, be it Walmart or be it, Sainsbury's in the UK, or maybe like Coles in your market. And, they have no idea, what the broadcast team are putting out there, what's on your billboards for digital out of home. All of these things need to come together, and these teams should be included on the full media schematics and plans that they run. And, they should be looking for those crossover opportunities to really drive that media marketing swell and, capitalize then on the closed loop sales that you could provide with commerce media. Yeah.
We had dinner when I was in London in, I think it was November. You were very, very kind. We'd never actually met each other in person. I don't think we'd spoken 2 words to each other. You were very kind to come and have dinner. We were like, let's get dinner. I'm like, cool, let's do it.
And look, I'm always up for free food. So, it wasn't that kind.
It was good food too. Yeah, it was really good food.
Yeah, it was quid pro quo on that.
Yeah, it was true. That's true. But we'd both come off a solid day of conferences and talk, and you had been on panels, and it was all retail media. And one of the themes that week for me was really, and I think the theme in general, and there was some, I'd done a piece with the Senate Council over at McKinsey, and the one of the real themes for that week was, how do we create more inventory? If things are slowing, maybe just a little bit, a touch, not yet, still a beast, where else do we look? And offsite, was a theme of that week, offsite media. Where are we going? How can we bring more media in, like you've just talked about, CTV? We've seen Walmart with Vizio and things like that. And I think that kind of really sparked a lot of people going, how do we bring more inventory and make it more available to the customers we have? But there's obviously some issues with going offsite, right? There's margin erosion and all those things.
And how do you connect the dots like we were talking about before?
Yeah, exactly. I'd really like to get your take on where do you think that's going? What I've obviously got invested in, just I'm a bit biased in the space because I think, that's something that, Disclaimer Voodoo is very much moving into or has a great offering for. But I'd love your take on this because we spoke about it passionately on the night, and I'd love to kind of get your insights on the opportunity for offsite media because it's really exciting. And then us aside, there is so many opportunities and so many providers there the retail media networks can really open up. I think they have, I'm going on here a bit, I'll sharpen a sec. I think this is a really exciting opportunity for retail media networks to really look at opening up their worlds beyond their borders. That could be nervous. It could make other channels quite nervous, right? What's your take on that? I'm really fascinated.
I love this topic. So I love that we're going to deep dive on it a little bit and go into a bit more depth. And it's something that I'm quite, very much focused on in relation to my role as Global Head of Commerce Solutions at GroupM. I think first up, just some context. Like I read a very detailed retail media report put out last summer by Barclays Bank. And through their research, they put on-site retail media as having like a 90% share of total retail media. Now, I know that's going to vary market by market, retailer by retailer. And then they put off-site at an estimated 10% share. In-store doesn't even, reach over 1%. At the moment, I've seen some articles which put it about 0.7% just in the US market alone. So, that there's obviously, a lot of room for growth there. But if we just stay focused on offsite, they were forecasting, based on the frame of your question, Nick, over the next 3 years, it should be getting to around 30% share of total retail media, which I read that and my eyes lit up because, I had that feeling that this is the direction that the industry does need to go in, because clearly on-site inventory is going to have limited space. And, once you kind of get to that level of ad load, which can seem ridiculous at times, if you go on some kind of e-commerce sites, and I'm not going to name any names, but sometimes you just feel like, right, I've searched for something and I'm getting all of these ads, and some of the relevance is questionable, and there's just too many ad slots. Like, I just want to find exactly what I search for without too much noise. So I think there's a thing around balance there, and not kind of over bombarding the site with ads and just keeping it more premium.
That's a very good point.
But coming back to offsite, if we think of it, God, like clearly, you've probably done a few tech shows to flog the voodoo wares.
Don't you know it?
I used to do loads of those when I was back in my toy days. Very hard work, but very enjoyable. If we think of onsite is your trade show booth. That's where the conversions are kind of going to happen. You've got that in-depth, chance for that one-on-one conversations with everyone. If I was selling food, for example, my wife's from Morocco. We always get olives there when we're in the market. The Moroccans are so good at selling. You walk past the vendors and, everyone's offering you samples, right? Free kind of samples. And before you know it, you're coming home with more olives than you ever wanted to buy in the first place. So we think of that as our trade show booth, the on-site. Now, the off-site is clearly we're looking to drive more reach and get more people to the booth. So, we're going to put billboards up all around the town. We're going to be playing ads on radio all over your social feeds. Come to this location and see our trade show booth. So the ideal approach is when these two things work together, and it's like, on-site and off-site, it's like a 1-2 punch. When I was involved in actually planning and running campaigns, for a huge global client, one of the biggest FMCG and CPG brands globally, I would be running concurrent retail media campaigns. And one was just completely focused on getting people to complete a video of promoting the product, and no other metric mattered. I wasn't looking at the return on ad spend on that, and the return on ad spend was, it was a negative return on ad spend. But, off the back of that campaign, everyone that sort of clicked through to this page, we would retarget, add an offer to the mix and drive that purchase, and the corresponding volume we would get through that and conversions was much higher when we're running the video campaign versus when we're not running the video campaign. And I know, we've done a lot of sort of clean room studies going into, multi-touch attribution and what's the ideal amount of exposures. And it kind of shows that, multi-format and, 4 to kind of 8 exposures was like the sweet spot in order for driving the most conversion. So, that just shows the beauty of how offsite can work and really, really boost on-site. But, the obtuse view of that is like, offsite ROAS is really poor. It's no good. And that drives me absolutely insane. So hopefully that gives a little bit more detail around it.
Yeah, it's great. It drives you insane. Let's just unpack that. Just unpack that quickly.
Because it's just a narrow view. ROAS, return on ad spend, is an important metric, but I don't feel as if it should be actually used as an objective.
Yeah, right.
It should be used as a scale. The example I gave earlier, right? If I can just break even on that video campaign, amazing, right? It's paying for itself, but the real value is driving the ROAS of the next campaign, who've already been exposed to the video and they're primed to buy. And if we could connect all of media, broadcast, linear television, out of home, not just digital, if we could connect all of these dots, it would show that to like a greater extent. Driving that awareness and that affinity is very, very important. It's just, we can't connect, all of those points aren't connected like they are in retail media.
Yeah, it's nirvana, isn't it?
Exactly. So we become over reliant on the fact that, I can attribute sales to this media, but that doesn't mean that media that you can't exactly isn't effective, because, it clearly is effective.
Jason, do you think that's part of the promise of retail media, that it's that connection of all those dots, the data piece that everyone's so excited about? Because one day we might be there, we might be able to say that interaction offsite converted at this rate, and that's what we're all so excited about, is that really rich data set that you get from these retail media operators.
Exactly that. That's why the finance guys love it. They can show return on investment. I call closed loop measurement the holy grail of marketing, with commerce and retail media. Is because I can say, right, this exact campaign drove this exact amount of sales, and they love it.
Yeah.
Because some of the detractors of retail media, the bubble that it's creating at the moment, that it's the big thing, it's the big talk of the town, are that if you're only talking to people that have come to that particular retailer, you may be converting them from one product to another, but how are you filling your funnel? And that's where the off-network piece really comes into play, and where the promise of linking that data is, which is a nice segue to one of the questions we wanted to ask. Do you see there a bit of a tension between the retail media networks and the agencies, and the transparency of the data sets and to enable that sort of nirvana that we're talking about?
That's loaded, isn't it?
There's always a healthy tension. I mean, this isn't just about retail or commerce media. Like if we look at agencies, advertisers, and media owners in general, there's always a soft tug of war going on. It's a really, really interesting dynamic. If you think about it as two people on the dance floor at a nightclub, right? I got the speakers in the background, so my head's kind of in that space.
No, we're with you.
And they're moving in time, and everything's coordinated, and it looks great. You can almost see slow motion in movies, kind of around that beautiful scenes, or they're out of time. They're stepping on each other's toes and knocking into each other, and the whole thing just looks really, really ugly.
You've been out with Paul recently.
Yeah, clearly. So that's what I think it's like, and data access is probably one tension point. How much of the data do retailers want to share with agencies and advertisers? We need it. We're in agencies, sometimes we're a bit like that detective who's trying to kind of solve the crime, and we need more clues from the media owners and the data providers in order to put the puzzle together. But sometimes certain policies, they might deem, right, this data is actually too sensitive to share. So there's like a soft tug of war sort of going on around that as well. And then I think there's always a conflict around, who has strategic kind of control over what's going on. And you want to be just very careful around mismatched objectives. I mean, if you got imagine a kitchen where you got two Gordon Ramsays in at the same time, you might create something that's absolutely out of this world, or, you're going to get a punch up.
You just have two Muppets going at each other.
So, that's very, very important as well. And clearly, the media owners and, i.e. the retailers in this case, and the agencies, they both want the brands to succeed, but, they might have slightly different views on how this is done. And the retailers, they're only looking at it through their lens of the media that they control and provide. Whereas the agency will be looking at it through the lens of, okay, cool. Retail media is important. It makes up, 15, 20, 30% of what we're doing, but, it's not the full picture. So, that's why I always kind of lean towards, the agencies have the client's best interests in mind all the time.
Yeah.
And to what we were talking about before, they can see the whole mix, can't they? And I think it's probably complicated a little bit because you had that traditional trade relationship with your retailer. So you already had that connection with these retailers that are now become retail media salespeople, and there's retail media solutions, and that's why there's probably another tension point between the trade people at a brand and the media people, and how to bring that all together.
For sure.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on, look, we want to congratulate you for being appointed the chair of the IAB Europe's Retail Media Committee, a massive achievement. And as Paul and I had been conversing outside the podcast, that you'd literally written the book on retail media, which is amazing.
That was my line he stole, by the way.
You kept feeding it to me. Standardization, transparency in this space is obviously a big, big piece. You can see in lots of different channels has its challenges, but obviously this one, retail media, commerce media. What are you tackling at the moment at that committee level?
Yep, cool. I think first, I love that you said I wrote the book. I definitely didn't. write the book. I'm very fortunate. I might get to kind of sign off on some of the books, but we benefit from having a group of amazing people, and people who've been in the industry a lot longer than I have, and we're able to draw on all of their brilliant experience, from across ad tech, across agencies as well, and also retailers. I'm really, really proud that, these guys about a year ago voted me in to chair this committee. It's something I'm very passionate about is, how we can make the industry better. Sometimes I think of it as like, the Retail Media League, we're kind of like the referees in that, making sure the playing field's level and the game's played fairly for everyone and, to the benefit of advertisers as well. Being agency side, I'm very passionate. But a lot of challenges. I mean, the growth of retail media and, everyone wanting to jump on this bandwagon and the democratization of access, right, to be able to spin up your own retail media proposition now, because you've got the tech providers in place in order to do it. Your likes of Criteo, Kevel, Cody, Zitcher, all of these different companies that you can go to and be like, all right, I've got a critical mass now of working data and space within my site. Help me kind of set this up. So that's where we're at. But obviously then you have a lot of businesses all doing things in their own way, and that makes it a nightmare for advertisers who just want to be able to bring everything together and do everything in a unified way. So, the progress we made is, around the frameworks. We're creating that universal language. The measurement standards is a big piece of that. And, that was published around Q2 last year. We provide guides. So, different roadmaps. We all kind of get together with that collective gathering of, great talent and brains in the industry. And training as well. We want to upskill and provide that education for retail media. Our training program has literally just kicked off in Europe, I think at the end of last month. So, you have an opportunity to learn from the very, very best. I want to give a shout out to Yara Daher and Colin Lewis as well. They run our training program. Clearly everyone knows Colin Lewis if you know retail media. So that's going really well. But, the biggest challenge is, to come back to the question, is the adoption of the standards, right? And, this is where the rubber's going to meet the road on it, because we publish the standards. We tell everyone why they're important. And, we've gone to great lengths to make sure that the standards are comprehensive. But, if the retailers don't adopt them, and it doesn't become a thing within the industry, it's kind of a wasted effort. So that's what we're looking at now. And we've had a very good response thus far. We've just started our certification program in its beta testing phase. So, we've got a panel of 3 third-party auditors who will come and audit your retail media offering. And then they'll be able to say, does it align to the IAB Europe standards or not, basically. And if it does, then you get the certification. So we're going through beta testing on that at the moment, and hoping to kind of roll things out at some point fully in Q2. And that's going to be available to retailers and to ad tech companies as well. The more that these certifications are kind of out there, the more that advertisers can trust. Oh, right, cool. They've got the certification. It's a seal.
Well, that's what it comes back to, right? Trust. Trust in advertising. They can trust their networks that they're delivering. I've
sat on the IAB here in Australia for the last couple of years. So, look, hats off. You've got the building blocks in place there. We're going to have Gay, who's the CEO of the IAB here in Australia, on a podcast in the very near future. So I know we will definitely be wanting to follow your lead with what you've done there. I mean, the 101 guide is the first piece of the puzzle. And like, as you said, I wasn't aware of the auditing and the rest of it that goes place. So hats off to you, because it's definitely required here in Australia too. So we'll definitely follow your lead.
Absolutely. Okay, we're coming up to the end of this awesome podcast with you, Jason, and we want to just do some quick fire questions. I like this. It's classic, but at the moment there's a couple of loaded questions there. We'll go for word association, so I'm going to throw them at you, okay? You good?
Oh, my goodness. Right. Here we go. I'm going to have to be ready for this. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Retail.
Media.
TikTok.
Shop.
Credit card.
Oh, wow. Debt.
This one's pertinent to me. Video.
Shoppable.
Hey, AI.
God, life right now. The game changer.
Hello.
Goodbye.
Hey, Jason, thanks for joining us. Very insightful. I know you're being very humble about writing the book, but it did really sound like you've written the book on it. So thank you for joining us on our podcast. It's been really great.
No, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me. I've had a blast. Like, it's been great fun. I love what you guys are doing in this space as well. So I'm going to be watching and working, very closely in that. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Commerce Media Matters podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow and subscribe. We're always on the pulse of the ever-changing landscape of commerce media, ready to share the newest trends, insightful perspectives, and expert opinions with you. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep making media that matters. This podcast is executively produced and edited by Priya Tahazadeh, with co-producers Sandy Ho, Meg Lirsch, and me, Rachel Fang. This podcast is recorded on the lands of the Bidjigal, Gadigal, and Wurundjeri people, and we wish to acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land.